Howdy y'all, welcome back to Cam Shack Productions. Today, as you can see, we are not in the great outdoors, we are in studio because I have a trip coming up in February where a buddy and I were planning on going and exploring the other side of the Maze District that we haven't been in yet. I am a huge national parks guy. I would say I spend probably 30, 40 days a year in national parks. I live right here in Utah, so I'm surrounded by Arches, Zion, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, and also Bryce. There are just amazing national parks. And the reason I wanted to make this video was I wanted to talk about the parks reinstating needing a filming permit and then taking it even a little bit further. One of the things that's super important to understand in all of this is I am a big believer in the fact that these are our public lands. We pay to maintain them. They are out there so that we can go and experience beauty and we can go and see things that you can't normally see in your backyard, right? So I think it's really important to keep these open, accessible, and something that people should be able to experience, whether in person if they can, through a medium like YouTube or something like that. It doesn't really matter to me as long as people get a chance to see these places. It really comes down to understanding how the system works. And as I was going through YouTube, I found a bunch of YouTubers that put out videos talking about how after this ruling came through, and it's the Price v. Barr ruling that came through. I'll put a link to an article about this in the description here. I'm also going to put a link to the actual judges. This was taken up by the DC Court of Appeals, and I'll put their ruling link in there as well. It's really important that you understand how this works and what's going on. So they reversed a ruling that took place because a large YouTuber went into the park, filmed, got monetized. He's a monetized YouTuber. He got paid, and the national park said, "Hey, where's our cut on that?" And when I say he went into the park and filmed, I'm not talking about like commercial filming situation where there are trucks, there's catering, there are actors, there are lights. This guy went in and vlogged. He had his own camera, he took pictures, he took video, he talked about his experience in the park. Same thing a lot of us would do if we decided we were going to go into a national park, right? And keep a memory. The only difference is that he's putting it on YouTube and getting paid. And that's where the federal government is saying, hey, from now on, if you get paid at all from YouTube, from TikTok, from a major motion picture company, whatever it is, you are required to now have a filming permit. So with knowing this and me going out on my trip here, I am not a monetized YouTube channel. I would like to be someday, which is where I'm going to ask right now. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you would, take a second, please, go down, hit subscribe. That's the last time I'll ask you to do that, I promise. I'm sorry, shameless plug. Had to do it. I really want to hit that 1,000 mark this year. But back to what's really important here. I am a big time rule follower. I'm also not a young person. I think everybody that hears the word YouTuber thinks like Logan Paul or somebody that's out there that's just really probably not the greatest type of human being and they're going to take advantage and make as much money as they can. I do this because I really enjoy it and it's something that helps me grow my videography and photography business. I learn every time I go out and I like to share the experiences with people. I think it's fun to try to learn how to tell a story and do all these things. And the National Park Service is now saying, hey, wait, even if you do that, you're not bringing in a company, you go out and you film this. If you make money, we are going to charge you a fee for this. So I looked into it, and I am going into the Maze District of Canyonlands, which is a pretty remote location, right? There are a lot of really unique different things there. I went onto the National Parks website to see if I could find the filming permit information. And as you go in there, there's a whole classification of the documents that you need to have, or a whole classification of what qualifies you to require a filming permit. And then you go in and you say, okay, I need a permit. And then it says, all right, click here and find the specific park because each park handles these differently. Arches and Canyonlands are all one group. Zion National Park, Bryce, they all have their own, Yellowstone, Yosemite, they all have their own different versions and fees for these types of things. So I go onto that website, I get directed into Canyonlands, And in the Canyonlands area, there is really no information. All it basically says is call the field office. Here's a number. You can also email. So my thought is, okay, I want to find out about this. I want to figure this out. So I called the number that's on the website. And I actually ended up speaking to, we're going to call this person employee X. And I want to make this very clear right here and right now. If you have a problem with this system, please do not go after the individual employees. Please do not dox them. Please do not make it their problem. They have rules, they have bosses, they have things that they have to do, and they have things that they have to follow. Now, hopefully everybody gets someone like employee X that is kind and willing to listen and willing to have a conversation, because they spent about 35-40 minutes on the phone with me because I had questions. You know, they were really kind about trying to explain it to me. I probably came in a little hot. They probably got a little heated because they'd had a bunch of phone calls like this. Because again, when the federal government makes a huge sweeping swath like this, they don't think about the one person that handles two Arches and Canyonlands, two of the biggest national parks, and people want to go film there and they want to make sure that they don't get an up to $10,000 fine and possibly 6 months in jail. Like, that is literally what you could get for this. They really were kind. They walked me through all of this. And you know, we didn't agree, not at all. And that's understandable. But I want to explain what the actual process was once I got them on the phone. So, because I am not monetized, I don't really need to do any of this. But if one of my videos takes off and becomes viral, am I going to get hit with a fine later? Those are the questions that I was asking myself. So in going into this with them, they told me that I would have a 0 permit fee. My fee is 0. I do not, because it's only 0 to 2 people with small gear, my own little camera, just myself. $0 for the per day fee from the park. But it is not free. Because of the location I want to go into, there's a $280 application fee that is non-refundable. So whether you get the permit or not at this very specific location, they are keeping my $280 regardless. And you know, they said that it would probably be approved, there'd be no problem, and I hope in making this video that I don't completely blacklist myself from ever getting a filming permit in a national park. $280. And then they want to know exactly where you're going to be, the amount of time you're going to be filming. You have to come really detailed. And I told them where we were going to be going, and they let me know that because of the location I had selected, I would need what they call a chaperone. There are level 3 archaeological sites in this location. So what that means is level 1 is all the stuff that you see on a map when you go into a national park and it tells you to go check out this site. That is a level 1 archaeological site. Level 2 means that they exist, they're not on a map, but if you're at a backcountry desk and you ask them specifically about the Amazon Sun ruin, they will tell you where it is located. Level 3 means that it is completely none. Nothing is said about it. They will not give you any direction. If you happen to stumble upon them and find them yourself, then that's on you and that's great. But they're not going to give you any information on how to get there, what they're about, and what they're like. So in this location, there are several of those. So what that means is that I would need to have a chaperone come out and make sure that I'm not filming those locations or geotagging them, which is exactly what I was told, is to erase all my geotagging, which kind of is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. But nonetheless, they would have to send somebody out, and there is a 2-hour minimum that has to go in. And then that person would have to be with me. If I was filming for 5 hours, they'd have to be with me for the entire 5 hours, not to mention the amount of time that it takes them to drive from wherever they are to your location. And in this area, that would be about an hour to 2 hours to get out to where we would be actually hiking, filming, camping, you know, just enjoying a place that we've both wanted to see for a really long time. So that would start the minute they leave. So I would have to pay 2 hours there, 2 hours back, plus the time that I need them there while I'm filming at $50 an hour. So even as somebody that might not make money on this is something they'd want me to do, and it would end up costing me somewhere around $500 to $600 to get a basic filming permit for me to go out with just my digital SLR, my gimbal, and a GoPro and film a video to bring back to show you guys someplace that you're probably not going to get to in your life. I find that really disturbing. You know, I understand when you go into a national parks employees' job is to protect and guard the resources of that national park. But 90% of the employees that I deal with in national parks, and employee X was not one of these, do not go after them. I'm going to say this again. Do not hammer on park employees. They're just doing their jobs. Now, that also being said, park employees, we are not your enemies. We are not all out there to destroy everything. You do not have to treat us like we are the worst people in the world because we are in and it's not yours, by the way, it's our national park system. Every national park employee, I shouldn't say that. Most national park employees I interact with are bitter, angry, they're upset that there are people there, they want to preserve and protect, but the way that they can do that is they can teach people how to do things correctly, which is one of the things that I really pride myself on with my YouTube videos. I'm a good steward of the land. I really care about these locations. I want to make sure that they stay safe for future generations because it is amazingly beautiful. So I take really good care of that. And in all of my videos, I try to teach you something about what to do when you're in those locations. Cryptobiotic soil, how to make sure you're on trail, how to make sure you're following trails and know what a cairn is. Things that you might be watching a video so that you can go in with some understanding. And the National Park Service sees it as you're advertising this space that we don't really want people to come to anyway. At least that's how it felt to me in these conversations. So, wrapping all of this up and coming up with my points. This is something that the federal government is doing because they want to make sure that they get revenue off of you if you make money in their national park. And again, if you have a video with 1 million views and you're probably going to make $30 to $40 off of that video, right? So you have to get to 1 million to get $30 or $40, let alone 600 and something. So National Park Service, how about if we meet in the middle somewhere? If you are a highfalutin production company that's going to be bringing in trucks and doing things, you are in Permit A zone, which means that you have to do all of these things, you have to pay all of these fees, and you have to make sure that all of that is detailed and taken care of. And then how about if we have Permit B, like a recreational filming permit for someone that's going out and potentially doing something like I'm doing, and then maybe it's $30, 25, 30 bucks per day if you even wanted to. I still think that's a little steep, but 30 bucks for your trip. I go out, I make my content, you make your money, and we can all kind of meet in the middle. And then you can also make sure that the regulations that you want me to follow are in place and stated. So I just find this to be a really big violation of someplace that we should all be able to go and experience. And, you know, what if you're out there and you're a family and you're in your RV and you're doing something great at Yellowstone and a buffalo walks behind you and your video goes viral and you make a little bit of money? Is the Park Service going to be able to come after you and say, hey, you didn't have a permit while you were there? I mean, you know, there's all these little wishy-washy areas, and I just feel like this is the Park Service reacting to YouTube wanting to bring awareness to their great spaces in a time where it's really busy outdoors. And National Park Service, I have news for you. That's not going to change. So why don't you guys find a way to better manage those parks? If you want to make sure that somebody doesn't go into a level 3 archaeological site, maybe you need to have somebody watching it and making sure that they're not damaging it instead of putting all the onus back on us. The way I explained it to employee X was, I am required to know all of the laws. I have been told multiple times for speeding infractions that negligence is no excuse for the law. Yet when you push these guys on these information and these pieces, uh, they can't even tell you who's in charge of the department where you could write a letter or voice your concern. There is no accountability. It is do as I say, not as I do. And again, I really hope this doesn't stop me from ever getting a filming permit again, because I want to be in national parks, I want to film, and I want to do it the right way. But I think charging somebody who makes very little money, if any at all, on YouTube is not the way to do this. even if somebody's making a lot of money on YouTube, they're still paying their taxes. They still have to have something. They still have to have a business. And I'm not even talking about the $1 million in liability insurance that the Park Service wants you to have to even get these permits. Yeah, that's a whole different thing. So I would really suggest that you dive into this, look at it, stand up, take action. I could imagine that if all of us that are outdoor YouTubers got together and we all started to kind of put pressure on the Park Service to come up with a compromise, we could probably get something done. So tell me if you've ever had a really great or really negative experience with the Park Service down in the comments. And if you would, really please go down and hit the like button on this video. I want it to go out there. I want people to know what's going on, and I want us to be able to say, hey, I don't feel like this is right. Can we talk about it instead of just being told, this is the way it is, this is how you're going to do it? I always feel like we as people have a way to compromise somehow. So again, please go hit that like button, share this thing around the internet, and hope to see you again. Be well, my friends.